Good everyone, Organization. Today we have a review on the T14 Heavy tank. This is a tank that originally, when I first got it, I used to hate the ever-living guts out of it. Every time I play it, I'd get one shot, even if I angled the armor like people said I should. And it was just a tank that everyone was praising, everyone was saying it's so good, and I'm just like, no, it's not, it's a pile of shit. But then volumetric came into the game, and I don't know what it is, but this thing feels absolutely great now. Now, to start off with, I believe this vehicle got its price changed to 1,600 golden eagles. It might be that, or it might be 1,750. I can't quite remember, because I know they changed the price on this thing. It used to be 1,300 back when it was ranked 2, I think. But I got mine in War Bombs, I wouldn't know. And I do think it's worth the asking price, but of course, given there's a sale coming up, it's definitely worth the price when it's half off. This is a vehicle that not only has great armor, it has a decent gun, and it does have surprisingly good mobility. But there are a couple of things that do let it down a little bit, but that's not really the tank's fault. And what I mean by that is the lineups. There isn't really much of one. Whilst there is the T14, the M4A1, the 76, and the M6A1, which is perfectly acceptable, having two heavies and then having a pretty okay AA, I would say, isn't really something that I would consider. I mean, I'd probably want to swap the heavy for another, or maybe a light tank, but even then, you'd have to get the Chaffee, and the Chaffee does start to lose its touch. It can still do some work, but when you're fighting tigers and stuff, it can be a lot harder. Not saying it's impossible, but you get my point. So the T14 does, on paper, look worse as a heavy tank and more of a fat medium, but you'll be surprised. So starting us off with the frontal plate, we have a 50.8 frontal plate, which, to those of you that have played your Shermans, you might be scratching your head. Why is this thing considered a heavy tank when it has the same frontal armor as a medium? But what you got to remember, it's better sloped. This has 60 degrees, and it is much more effective as an actual piece of armor than what a Sherman's is. The transmission has also been up armored to 101, and it has several sections which are nigh on impossible to penetrate at given angles. And if you angle your armor like this, to make sure the machine gun port doesn't get penned, yeah, this does start to look a little bit better, doesn't it? Not only does our frontal armor go up insanely, but our side armor also goes up, and we have the drive wheels and the tracks to make up for any loss in the the lower sections around the drivetrain. The only thing you can't do, however, is the turret front. The turret front is only 76.2, and it is cast. Unfortunately, this is the letdown of the T14, and a lot of players seem to know about this spot. Whilst the gun mantlet will stop the majority of vehicles at this BLO in terms of penetration, the turret front isn't really stopping anything. And this is why I encourage you to not only angle the armor, but also angle the turret. Because the sides and rear of the turret are 101.6, and this can make a big difference when it comes to being shot by a 75mm at decent range. Because not only do you have the sloping of the turret, but also you have much more improved protection of the turret, and that's why I'm recommending you to do that. Now, the side skirts may catch a shell or something, but I've never really had them do that. They normally tend to just eat shells with the drive wheels themselves. The side skirts don't really stop anything. The only time they've really stopped anything was when a whirlwind managed to get around my side, and they helped protect my side, but that's about it. There are a couple of sections that are 100mm thick, but these really don't make much of a difference. But if we take off the external armor, the side armor is only 63 in the lower part and 50 on the top. And the rear is also 50, so just bear that in mind. Whirlwinds can and will pend your side if they get too close. Do not let German 20mm flank you. That's all I'm saying. But otherwise, the armor of this tank is really impressive. And the roof armor can stop pretty much anything in terms of guns that will attack you, unless they're firing a dedicated anti-tank gun. And it's really surprising that people... Well, I used to shit on this tank all the time. I used to park it and just go, not playing this thing, not playing this thing. But recently, I have to admit I've had a lot of fun. And I've played it so much, I've even got the Mark of Distinction. That really tells you just how good this thing is. And whilst my stats in it may not be the best, all I'm saying is, give this thing a second chance if you haven't already. Because trust me, this thing can clap. And for the price it's asking for, and the sale especially, this thing is an absolute bargain and will absolutely rock the shit of enemies. But there is one thing we need to discuss, and that's the up tiers. In up tiers, Tigers will slice through that frontal plate even if you angle. Same with Panthers. And unfortunately, because of German mains, those are spammed to ever-living heck. So don't expect to get 4.7, 5.0, 5.3 matches all the time. And you'll see in the match my recommended ammo loadout, and that's personally what you should run. But I digress. Anyway, let's get into the match and let's take a look at the T14. For those who are new to the channel, you might have noticed a replay up at the top there. If you're not in the Discord, of course, you might have noticed the... This doesn't look like the right replay. I could have sworn I clicked on T14. This is T14, I swear it is. Huh. That's the same length as the SMK. Well, roughly. Okay, we're not skipping. Yeah, they still haven't fixed that sound, and it's horrible, so sorry about that. So, starting us off with the mobility, it is actually pretty good. You get the same engine as a M4A3, so you get 500 horsepower, and you can move extremely easily. However, that player in the Sherman right there is just demonstrating the amount of teammates that you're going to have to unfortunately put up with, because sadly these teammates are not very smart. They just spray their machine guns at balloons, thinking it's going to get them kills and make them look like some sort of War Thunder God. But no, it isn't. This gameplay isn't very long, so don't expect it to be like, where it's just showing me clapping everything. This is just something that sometimes will happen with the T14. I mean, I have had good runs in the T14 that can last quite a while, but this one perfectly demonstrates what the tank can do. So moving on, we have a Stridsvagen here, where the breach actually eats the shot and keeps him alive. And at first I was quite confused, because I thought, well, hold on, I've just took out your breach, and I thought I took out his gunner, but I didn't take out his gunner. I was just being a dumbass. Kill number 1. Now down that road is one of the few vehicles that will actually ignore your upper frontal plate. The SU-100Y. Why is it in this match? I don't know, someone bought it. That's all I'll say. And this, as I said, this gameplay isn't very long, but it perfectly demonstrates what this thing can do once you get it in a good position. Obviously, we are in the monument, as it is well known, and it's a nice spot. It has good hold down protection, and it can really help this tank when it comes to up tiers. Now, unfortunately, I'm trying to go for the KV-85's commander's hatch, but I'm actually being rammed by my teammate to my left. And unfortunately, I'm just not getting the shots in, and what isn't helping is my teammate to my left constantly ramming me. I don't know what his problem was, but he just kept doing it the entire match. Unfortunately, I'm just not able to punch through the commander's hatch on that KV-85. But don't worry, the T-34 is going to be dealt with in short fashion by an enemy player. But he was getting on my nerves, that I will say. He takes a hit from the right, which turns out to be a Panther, and the SU-100Y deletes him from existence. And well, I deleted him from existence. Kill number 2. And this is where I start plinking off the SU-100Y. I'm not really sure where to shoot it, but I do manage to penetrate which I honestly thought that wouldn't penetrate, and I get killed by 3. But as you can tell, my position is extremely overrun at the minute. There is a lot that I don't want to deal with, and unfortunately I don't have much of a choice in the matter. And that was a very unlucky shot for me to have to deal with there. If you actually notice, the shell hit the armor, but it went through the gap between it for the gunner's sight. So that was pretty unlucky. If I'd hit about 5 centimeters more to the right, that would have been a kill. But unfortunately, I didn't. There goes that Dicker Max, which will cleave through your upper frontal plate extremely easily. And even through your gun mantlet, which may not come as a surprise given it's a Dicker Max. And at the minute, my team is just being completely overwhelmed. We're losing vehicles left, right and centre. Most of my team is too busy defending B to actually give me a hand here. And, well, I'm now suffering from the threat of air attack, which the T14 does have a top mark 50 cal, but it doesn't have very good elevation. And, well, unfortunately, my time in the T14 is soon to come to an end. Not only am I getting overwhelmed, but also there's a lot more of them than there are of me. And soon enough, I am going to be overwhelmed in my position, and sadly this is just what most of your matches will be like, because thanks to German mains complaining about German tanks being at higher BRs than what, or lower BRs than what they actually should be, unfortunately there's not a lot you can do about it. And there I go. Completely overwhelmed because I have no team support. And unfortunately, that's just how most of your matches in the T14 are going to go. And sadly, that is just what you're going to have to deal with. Because the majority of the teams that I had, they were just sat around capping, or in cap points, just sitting in the caps, like on this battle map. They were just sitting there, not doing anything, and they don't give you any team support. As you saw, I was the only tank left alive in the monument area. And my team just never came to help. They were too busy camping. And sadly, if you buy this tank, that is the one major thing that you cannot account for. But I still think it's definitely worth the money. This is a great tank for the price, and it is ridiculously fun. All I will say is, though, just be mindful, because the frustration of having to deal with teams like this will likely affect your gameplay experience. So don't overwork yourself, don't blame it on the tank. The tank is perfectly capable, it's just half the time your team's a dog shit. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys off. I hope you enjoyed today's review on the T14 Heavy tank, and I'll catch you all on the next one.